maturity period. So it keeps, once it is flowered, once it is matured, it will keep blooming for next 2 to 3 months. So marigold is having 2 to 3 months of maturity period. Wheat 3 months. The flowering lasts for only few days. Notice 2 to 3 months, 3 months, and rice also 3 months. So marigold, wheat and rice, they have the maturity period of 3 months, and coconut and mango, whereas they are having more. Coconut is having 8 to 10 years and mango is having 4 to 6 years. Okay, so maturity period, that is the reproductive period, varies in the organism. Marigold, wheat, right? Marigold, wheat and rice having 3 months on an average, and coconut 8 to 10 years and mango 4 to 6 years. So we'll move to the next bit. One more neat point, dear students, to be remembered. In a polycarpic plants. Now what is this polycarpic plants? The polycarpic plants are the plants which survive for many years. These polycarpic plants, the period between any two flowering plant, in the polycarpic one more important neat point we'll discuss, students. In polycarpic plants, the period between any two flowering season is called as interflowering period. Repeat, in a polycarpic plant, that is many season surviving plant, the period between any two flowering season, that is once it is flowered and it has entered the period of non-flowering phase, but it is going to flower in the next season. So that phase, that period between the two flowering period is called as interflowering period. That period, that time between the it has stopped flowering, and because earlier it has flowered, it has stopped flowering but supposed to flower in next period, that in between period is called as interflowering period. Repeat, the period between any two flowering season is called as interflowering period. This interflowering period is not considered as a juvenile phase. Children, students, please notice this condition. The interflowering period is not considered as a juvenile phase, but it is mature phase because it has already flowered. So, but it has stopped temporarily, it has taken a pause, and that pause phase is actually the matured phase. It is also called as recovery phase, during which the plant prepares itself for the next flowering. Okay. Now in this phase it is not flowering, but it had flowered. It is not in the juvenile phase, but it is, this phase is the special word we use. It is called interflowering period, and it is preparing itself for the next flowering period. Repeat, the polycarpic plant, the phases between the any two flowering period is called interflowering period. It is, this interflowering period is not considered as a juvenile phase, but it is the matured phase or the recovery phase, during which the plant is prepared. It has flowered already, stopped a bit to prepare itself for the next flowering conditions, and then it is called as interflowering period. Important point to be noted. Next, we are going to another bit, why fruits like mango, apple, jackfruit are seasonal in nature. You have seen that mango appears in a particular season, apples will appear in a particular season, jackfruits are also appearing in the particular season. Why they are called as seasonal fruits? So because these fruits, mango, apple, jackfruit, etc., these plants show the flower. Since the flowering is seasonal, the fruits are also seasonal. In that particular season, the flowers are appearing. Therefore, after finishing of that flowering period, we'll get the fruits. Therefore, they are called as seasonal fruits. So next, one more important neat point we are discussing. The plants that complete their life cycle in 1 year, they are called as annual plants, and that plants which needs 2 years, they are called biennial plants. And the biennial plants are having one phase, juvenile phase called as vegetative phase, mature phase called as reproductive phase. After finishing the reproductive phase, they will enter into the aged phase, that is called as senescent phase. And these three phases are seen very clearly, that is vegetative, reproductive and senescence phase. Clearly those are called as biennial type. So annual type, they will finish their life cycle in a single year. Biennial, they show vegetative, reproductive and senescent phase in a very clear manner. Those are called as biennial plants. Perennial plants are those plants which do not show clear vegetative, reproductive and senescent phase. So these three phases are there, but clearly they are not seen. They will survive for many years, then they are called as perennial plants. Repeat, if the plants complete its life cycle in a single year, annual, in 2 years, biennial, in many years, perennial. In biennial plants, vegetative, reproductive, senescent phase clearly observed. In perennial plants, these phases are not clearly seen. Okay. Students, one more neat point. Which are the plants that show unusual flowering phenomenon? So, which plant? There are certain plants which are not showing the normal flowering phenomenon. So, these plants, one plant which is showing unusual flowering phenomenon, that is called bamboo, and another plant that is called Strobilanthes kunthiana, we call locally as Neelakuranji. These two plants, bamboo species and Strobilanthes kunthiana, Neelakuranji, are showing the unusual flowering phenomenon. Now, what about this bamboo species? So, speciality about this bamboo species is that these bamboo plants will flower only once in their lifespan. That is, these will flower 50 to 100 years. Only once in 50 to 100 years. And one more interesting part to notice that once when it flowers after 50 to 100 years, after flowering, they just die off. Means their survival period is over. Once they have attained the matured phase or the reproductive phase, their survival period is over. So therefore, they remain alive till 50 years in a juvenile phase. After entering in the maturity phase, reproductive phase, that is after 50 to 100 years, they will produce the huge amount of the flowers, large number of flowers and fruits, and then they die. In the next slide, I'll be showing you the images of the bamboo species with the flowering. So you'll have to wait for some time. Then about the plant called as Strobilanthes kunthiana. So Strobilanthes kunthiana called as Neelakuranji. So you can see the plant called as Neelakuranji. This Neelakuranji plant will blossom only once in 12 years. Very important, very important neat point, that is Neelakuranji plant showing the unusual flowering phenomenon, blossoming phenomenon, that it will flower only once in 12 years. So every 12 years you can see the blossoms of Neelakuranji. So they flower only once in 12 years and mostly in September, October month. It had already flowered in September, October 2006 along the hilly areas of Kerala, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. So I repeat, bamboo species flowering only once in its life cycle. I mean only once in its lifespan. After 50 to 100 years, once when it flowers, huge number of flowers are produced. Once flowers are produced, the plant will die. It will finish off its lifespan. Strobilanthes kunthiana, that is Neelakurinji, they will flower only once in 12 years. Means every 12 years it is flowering. And this flowering was seen in 2006. And this is seen in hilly areas of Kerala, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. So this Neelakurunji is very beautiful scene to look at. Many tourists will visit and this plant will grow on the either side of the road, and you can see the long stretches of this beautiful Neelakurunji growing, wide stretches. Very beautiful view, but you have to wait every 12 years to see this scene. So Neelakurunji and bamboo plant blossoming in 50 to 100 years. Okay, one more point to be noted is in animals after juvenile phase there is a reproductive phase. So and here once in the animals juvenile phase is followed by the reproductive phase, and in this reproductive phase it shows many morphological and physiological changes. Means in the juvenile phase the morphology is different, and once when it attains the reproductive phase it will show lot of changes morphologically. To weave, reproductive phase is clearly distinctly seen. For example, in humans, development of onset of menstrual cycle, development of breast and feminine appearance, all these are morphological changes that are seen, and menstrual cycle, that is physiological change that is seen. In the males, hoarseness of voice, masculine development, all these are the morphological changes that are observed during the reproductive phases that are seen in the animals. Okay, one more thing to be noted, the birds living in the nature, that is naturally surviving birds which are surviving in jungles and all, they lay the eggs only seasonally. Whenever there is their breeding period, after finishing their breeding period, they will lay the eggs only seasonal. But the birds which are kept in captivity, that is we make the cages and all, we keep them in the captivity, those birds are seen to lay the eggs throughout the year. So this is the adaptation, this is the change that is seen, unusualness that is seen. The birds surviving in natural habitat will give the eggs seasonally, but the birds which are in the captivity will lay the eggs throughout the year. So that was the bit.